Well, good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson tonight. We'd hoped to be off the Twitter beat by now, since there was actual news happening in the world, but there was a development in the president's ongoing feud with a certain cable news outlet that we felt was revealing enough to bring you details of tonight. Remember that professional wrestling video the president tweeted out the other day, the one with the CNN logo superimposed on the face of the villain? How could you forget that? Well, we interrupt this broadcast for some breaking news, because CNN had its own crack investigative team working through the night to hunt down who made that seconds-long piece of tape, because nothing is more important than that. And in the end, of course, they found out. We'll let them explain what happened next.
The Reddit user behind it posted his apology after CNN identified and tried to contact him. He apologized for some of his other posts that were racist and anti-Semitic. Now, CNN is not publishing the user's name because of his apology, his removal of all the offensive posts, and his pledge not to repeat this behavior on social media.
Well, there's a lot to unpack here. First, one of the biggest news organizations in the world spent a ton of money and a ton of time trying to find out who made this video. Now, you probably don't care who made it, because why would you care? Some guy on the internet, crushing him is not that important. But CNN felt it was vital. Why did they feel that way? Because in politics, all dissent merits a response, even if it was a joke. Whatever it takes to beat your opponent, in this case Trump, is worth doing. So this is Oppo research posing as journalism. Then there's the question of this guy's name. CNN is keeping it secret. Why are they doing that? Well, as you just heard them explain, because the man in question has apologized and promised he'll never do it again. Wait a second. When did CNN become a law enforcement agency or a religious order? Since when is it CNN's job to police the internet for immorality, to spare punishment in return for repentance? Maybe they'll start selling indulgences next. But that was just the first explanation for why they're withholding the name. CNN later announced that it has, quote, decided not to publish the name of the Reddit user out of concern for his safety. But that turned out to be an even more problematic explanation, since the network had already announced that if the naughty internet guy in question ever got naughty on the internet again, for example, by, I don't know, criticizing CNN, then they'd release his name, which by their own description might imperil his life, which to a lot of people seemed pretty much like blackmail. Do as we say or we'll hurt you. Conventional news organizations don't typically make threats like that, ever. So it was another tough day for CNN today. One of their morning show anchors may have come up with the simplest answer of all. Let social media decide what to do about this guy's identity. Twitter, the perfect forum for thorny moral questions. Here's the quote. Should CNN reveal name of Reddit user who made Trump wrestling video? That's a tweet from Chris Cuomo. Quote, had a lot of bigoted and hateful material on page and website. Okay, so releasing this guy's name would endanger his safety, but then again, he's got, quote, bigoted and hateful material on his website, so maybe he deserves it. You decide, citizens of Twitter. Spare or kill him, your call. This is getting grotesque. We were all better off when CNN stuck to wars and hurricanes and missing airplanes. Mark Stein is a longtime news watcher, an author and a columnist, and he joins us tonight. Why? I'm wondering this. They put their crack investigators on the question of who made this dumb internet GIF. Why not find out where al-Baghdadi is or something?
Yeah.
If you're that good at finding stuff.
Right, that's what your investigative unit should be doing. This guy is entirely tangential to it. The way things work on the internet is somebody sends somebody a picture, and that person emails it to somebody else, and that person tweets it to somebody else, and 37,000 links later, it's become a thing, and nobody cares who created it or what other content he has created. Even if you accept that Chris Cuomo's definition of hate speech and bigoted and racist and anti-Semitic material ought to be the standard applied across the internet. Basically, a major news organization is policing some no-name schlub's internet content and threatening to reveal his identity if he transgresses their particular standards. That's completely nuts. I mean, Wolf Blitzer has basically put a horse's head in this guy's bed. And I don't know how this happened. CNN was like the world's most boring cable network just a month ago. Now it's behaving more and more nuttily each day.
So that's too good. So, but I mean, they seem to have come up with this kind of remarkable standard. They said, look, we're not releasing the guy's name because it would be a threat to his safety, presumably his physical safety. Right. But we're going to release his name if he says something we don't like. Now, people are calling that blackmail. Right. I don't know if it's blackmail exactly, but it's pretty weird for a news organization to, in effect, threaten harm if someone doesn't do what they say.
Well, the name is either newsworthy or it's not. But he got the message, they contacted him, and he immediately takes down all his internet posts. Now, I'm not a great believer in anonymity on the internet. I get tired of being called out by some twerp who has, you know, some butch name and an avatar from Game of Thrones, but he thinks that I'm not being manly enough on the internet. I'm not a particular fan of internet anonymity, but this guy got the message. He understands that CNN is watching him, so that if he were to make another anti-CNN GIF, another anti-CNN tweet, then they would release the fact that he's got a $500 lien on his home for unpaid property taxes, or his car was seen last Tuesday night parked outside Madame Fifi's bondage parlor. This is a ridiculous way for a news organization to behave, but the threat of people like Chris, and the idea, by the way, of Chris Cuomo and other CNN anchors saying, oh, we're so relieved. At last, you know, there were physical threats to our safety. And at last, we're all relieved because now we've got the goods on this guy and we can sleep at night and journalists are free to walk the streets once more. Get lost, you creeps. The 5th anniversary of the Danish cartoons, I appeared on stage with 5 other people. Of those 5 other people I was on stage with in Copenhagen for the 5th anniversary of the Danish Mohammed cartoons, one was shot at point-blank range. The other had his event shot up, and 2 people were killed. Another was forced out of public life entirely, and the 4th had her family's restaurant firebombed. Those are real threats against media figures that go on in Europe right now. The idea that reworking a joke that everyone knows is a joke is a threat to Chris Cuomo's safety is the most narcissistic, solipsistic act of navel-gazing by a profession that is already so self-obsessed, nobody who isn't in the media can stand the media.
That's so nicely put. And the sense of humor is always the first thing to go. That's always the sign you've completely lost perspective. CNN has Ministry of Truth. Mark Steyn, God bless you for coming on. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Tucker.